think it's clear that the biggest challenge, certainly in the financial sector, if not all sectors, that everyone has to deal with in the near future is ESG risk, and in particular climate change risk. That seems to be by far the largest near-term risk that is staring down at the financial sector. How we assist our clients with this risk is two fronts. We proactively assist our clients in preparing for this future by firstly providing training seminars and understanding so that they feel comfortable and truly understand what is ESG risk, what are the different components, how do you measure it, how do you identify it, how do you prepare for it, what regulations are coming, what sort of frameworks do you need to be put in place, and how do you get your organization to not only prepare for ESG risk compliance and monitoring, but to also make sure that they are part of the solution for fighting climate change and being able to identify their emissions and reduce their emissions once that identification process has been put in place. The second thing that we do is we help in designing practical, realistic, and meaningful ESG risk frameworks to help the organization better understand, measure, and manage their ESG risks. We've done this with a couple of institutions across Europe, Africa, and the MENA region. Again, in each approach, we look at what is the environment that our client is operating in, their business environment, what are their objectives, what are their capacity constraints, and then we build out the ESG frameworks, taking those into account. So we don't have a cookie cutter approach. It's very much about bespoke development where we can build out a fit for purpose framework that will speak to and help them in not only comply with the ESG risks, but also meet their emissions targets and help in the fight against climate change. And the third component that we focus ourselves in the space is that we provide commentary and advice to both regulators as well as central banks and commercial banks and DFIs as to what we see as the most effective means for them to meet the challenges posed by climate change. So what does this mean? Experience and exposure that we've seen working in the banks, and feed that back to, for example, regulators. We do a lot of work with the ECB and ensure that that feedback is then taken into account when they're drafting their regulations, provide commentary on the white papers, and then once those regulations are published, we'll then also help central banks distill those regulations into their own jurisdictions, and then of course the commercial banks and the DFIs comply with those regulations once they're published by the respective central banks.